Hello, my name is Yasong Lu. I'm a pharmacometrician at the Quantitative Clinical Pharmacology Group at Bristol Myers Squibb. Today I'm giving a tutorial on the use of Berkeley Madonna for quantitative systems pharmacology modeling, or QSP modeling for short. First, what is Berkeley Madonna? It's a computer program developed by two individuals, Robert Macy and George Oster, at the UC Berkeley with the support from National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health. The program was designed to numerically solve ODE systems as fast as possible. It's arguably the fastest, most convenient general-purpose differential equation solver available today. It is a tool of choice for some researchers in engineering. For QSP modelers, it's important to remember that Berkeley Madonna is essentially an ODE solver with some add-on functionality. It is not designed specifically for QSP modeling. And model building in Berkeley Madonna is basically based on programming language rather than graphic blocks. There's already a long list of programs available for QSP modeling. Just to name a few here: GDesigner, System Modeler, Mobile, SimBiology, MATLAB, XOX. Then, why Berkeley Madonna? Well, we have to acknowledge that not a single program can meet all QSP modeling needs. QSP modeling can have a wide spectrum of purposes and scopes. Just to give some comparisons here, some QSP models may be just fit-for-purpose small-scale models, yet some others may be comprehensive large-scale models. Some QSP models may be developed just for the purpose of enhancing mechanistic understanding, yet some others may be for the purpose of predicting clinical responses to intervention of novel targets. And some QSP models may just be focused on mean behaviors, yet some others may be more concerned about population variability, subpopulation behaviors. And from the standpoint of modelers' preferences, some modelers may prefer graphic model building, yet some others may prefer programming languages, coding models up themselves. So, such a diversity in modeling purposes, scopes, and modelers' preferences calls for a diversity of tools for QSP modeling. Berkeley Madonna has some unique features that make it a great tool for some QSP modeling activities, especially for small-scale models with a focus on mean behaviors. The purpose of this tutorial is to introduce the features of Berkeley Madonna via demonstration of this program with a published small-scale QSP model. Before we go to demo, let me give you some brief background of the QSP model. The model was developed by myself and colleagues at Bristol Myers Squibb. It was published last year, 2014, in a thematic issue on QSP modeling of the journal Frontiers in Pharmacology. Here is the link to the publication, and the publication itself is attached here. This is the publication. So we won't go through detail here. So it is sufficient to cover just a few points on this slide. So the purpose of the modeling was to understand the contributions of SGLT1 and SGLT2 to renal glucose reabsorption, thereby explain clinical pharmacodynamic observations of SGLT2 inhibitors. Some features of the model. First, it was a fit-for-purpose small-scale QSP model. with only about 50 ODEs. The model has a special emphasis on plasma glucose renal filtration, transfer along proximal tubules, and reabsorption via SGLT1, SGLT2, as well as competitive inhibition by SGLT2 inhibitors such as dapagliflozin and canagliflozin. The model doesn't have a component for glucose-insulin interactions because the data that supported model development were collected under glycemic clamping procedures where plasma glucose was fixed at certain pre-specified levels. Therefore, there was no need for the model to include glucose-insulin interactions. The model is focused on mean behaviors and with no consideration of population variability or random errors. The model includes healthy and type 2 diabetes subjects, but with no construction of virtual patients. The data that supported model development was published in DeFranco et al. 2013. Briefly, in this study, healthy and type 2 diabetes subjects were recruited. Those subjects were given dapagliflozin orally for 7 days. A stepwise hyperglycemic clamping procedure was conducted in these subjects at baseline and after 7-day dapagliflozin treatment. Under this procedure, the plasma glucose level was escalated stepwise from 100 to 550 milligram per deciliter, with increments of 50 milligram per deciliter. Each step was maintained for 40 minutes. The glucose escalation schedule is illustrated in these two figures. The main endpoint measure was urinary glucose excretion, or UG for short. The symbols in these figures indicate cumulative UG over time. The model structure is illustrated in this figure. As already mentioned, the model has special emphasis on glucose filtration into proximal tubules, transfer along the tubules, and reabsorption via SGLT1 and SGLT2 transporters. In the presence of an SGLT2 inhibitor, the inhibitor is filtered and transferred along the proximal tubules in the same manner as glucose. And at each subsegment of the proximal tubules, the inhibitor intervenes with glucose reabsorption. The glucose reabsorption rate in each subsegment is described using this Michaelis-Menten equation. With the presence of an SGLT2 inhibitor, the Km is modified by this term, reflecting the competitive inhibition. Now we're going to demo. I'm using version 8.3.18. This is the latest version. The new version is still in test mode. Berkeley Madonna does offer a free trial version that has almost the same functionality as the registered one, except that the results can't be saved or exported. I'm going to first open an empty session of Berkeley Madonna so that you know what it looks like. This is the default layout. Just like most programs, you have the menus and the toolbar on the top. And this is the only window, equations window. This is where you code up your model. These 4 lines of statement come with every new equations window. They define the default integration algorithm, the integration start and stop time and step size. You may change these settings either in this window or in the parameters window. In this window, you simply change a value to a different one. Say just something like this. And to change it in the parameters window, hit parameters, parameter window. This brings up the parameter window. In the first row, there are options of integration algorithms. There are 5 options here. Euler RK2, RK4, order step size, and Rosenbrock for stiff systems. If you want to change from RK4 to Rosenbrock, just simply select this one. Or the conditions are changed accordingly. If you want to change a parameter value, simply highlight the parameter, give it a different value in this box. Once it's changed, an asterisk comes up indicating this value is different from the value in the code, and hit reset to revert it. Now, about Berkeley Madonna language. The program itself has a succinct, comprehensive list of equations and functions. You can find it under Help, Equation Help. This brings up the whole list. So I'm going to scroll it from the top to the bottom. This list pretty much constitutes its syntax. When you work with Berkeley Madonna, this should be your best friend. Whenever you run into technical difficulties, this should be your first stop for consultation. So I'm going to close this up. I'm going to highlight some basic syntax. For comments or documentation, use a semicolon at the beginning. This is a comment. If you have numerous lines of comment or several paragraphs of documentation, you can use curly brackets, which is much more efficient than adding semicolon at the beginning of each line. And this is documentation. For defining parameters, it's simply a parameter symbol equals a value. So parameters. Let's say we are going to define a first order rate constant, k equals adding comment. The unit is inverse of time. This is first order rate constant. Let's say initial concentration equals 10 nanogram per ml. So we are going to calculate the concentration over time using an algebraic equation. C equals C0 times ext minus k times time. Here time is a reserved variable for time. By the way, Berkeley Madonna doesn't differentiate between uppercase and lowercase, so you can mix them in a code. To write a differential equations, say we are going to describe the mass balance in the stomach. We first define a rate constant. Absorption rate constant, comment 1 per hour, dose given into the stomach, so this is 10 mg, and the differential equation, so A amount prime, indicating this is a differential equation, so A prime is equivalent to dA over dt equals minus Ka times amount in the stomach. And for this differential equation, you have to have a coupling statement in it to define the initial condition in the compartment. So init A equals A0. Then hit run. The model is going to run. So the outcome is visualized in this plot. We will be going to plotting momentarily, so I'm going to close this up for now. With these several lines of statement, you master the syntax sufficient for you to start some basic PK or PK-PD modeling. Now we are going to exit this session. It prompts to save, in this case, no. Then I'm going to open the SGLT2 QSP model. Open the equations window. Let's look through to have some idea about the anatomy of the code. This code is already divided into sections. The first section is the general documentation for the model. There's a picture inserted here. It's a model structure. This is a quite a nice feature from a documentation standpoint. You may directly copy and paste a model structure into this area. Be aware that it's picky about the format of the object. It accepts PNG format, snapshot of PDF files, but not JPEG files. You may do your try and error to find out. Section 2 defines the conditions related to integration, and Section 3 defines model parameters. Parameters are related to study conditions, volumes, scaling of volumes, and then flows. This parameter GFR 066 HBS is defined not by a single value, but by a time series data set. The hash sign followed by a function of time indicates this function is actually a data set imported into the model. The value of this parameter is saying a time course linearly interpreted from this data set. To visualize this parameter, I'm going to run the model. A plotter window pops up. With this, I introduce some plotting functions. So resize this window. The x-axis by default is time, and the program automatically loads the first 8 variables appearing in the code. We don't care about these parameters for now. I'm going to remove them from the plot and add the ones we are interested in. So double click anywhere in this area. A pop-up for selecting variables to plot. The left box contains all the variables as well as the data sets imported in the same order as they appear in the code. The right box lists the variables currently on the plot. I'm going to remove these variables. Either double click on it or select and remove. There is no way to select all of them at once. So I'm going to do double click one by one. Then go to the left box to select the variables of interest. This window can't be resized. So when there's a long list of variables, it takes a while to spot the one of interest. This can be quite annoying. We are going to select GFR HBS, this data set. Hit double click, hit add, and the parameter value, the variable GFR066 HBS add, and OK. And then this plot is automatically updated. The data set is automatically plotted, but not the variable. For the variable, we have to run the model again. Now go back to the code. This is an if then else function for toggling a parameter value between several choices. Keep going down. These are the parameters related to SGLT1, SGLT2, Vmax, Km, and scaling of some parameters. And then parameters related to SGLT2 inhibitors, Ki1, Ki2, molecular weight, etc. Plasma glucose level. Go to the next section. It contains the mass balance equations for glucose. Differential equation with the definition of the initial condition, and algebraic equation for calculating glucose concentration in this subsegment. So likewise for other subcompartments. So keep going down. Calculations of some intermediate variables. The next section is mass balance equations for SGLT2 inhibitor. This is similar to section 4. We are reaching the end of the code. Some comments on coding a model in Berkeley Madonna. The modeler has full control over the model structure, and the Berkeley Madonna offers tremendous flexibility in structuring a model. This flexibility, of course, comes with an expense, which is a modeler has to be very meticulous about coding. For a complex model with many lines of codes, it is difficult first to realize these errors, and second, to rectify the errors. Berkeley Madonna can only identify syntactic errors, but not errors that are syntactically legit. Berkeley Madonna doesn't require code to be organized in a specific order, though for code readability, it's advised to group related statements into blocks. The equations editor doesn't have rich text editing capability. And it's very convenient to copy and paste out and into the equation window. The last point is Berkeley Madonna doesn't support scripting, where a separate command file defines a set of parameter values to study the conditions. This capability is actually often needed for QSP modeling, because QSP models are generally developed and validated against numerous data sets collected under distinct study conditions. There is some workaround for this issue. You may use array function where you lay out a couple of scenarios, or use if then else function to toggle your set of parameter values from scenario to scenario. Both of them require some coding skills and the code may become clumsy and prone to errors. Then we are going to explore model behaviors. One of the major strengths of Berkeley Madonna is the visual sensitivity analysis, enabled by some functions coupled with interactive plotting. As for statistical optimization of parameters, its function is rather rudimentary and may not meet QSP modeling needs. Let me adjust the layout to have the equations on the left and the parameter windows in the middle and the plot window on the right. Reset all these parameters. Let's focus on visual sensitivity analysis first. Suppose we want to explore how KM2, glucose affinity for SGLT2, influences EGE. In this plot, I'm going to remove this data set and this variable, and then add EGE. It's going to take a while to spot EG on this long list. The data is plotted, but not EG, so we need to run this. We have three ways to inspect the influence of KM2. The first is to adjust the value in this parameter window. Let's find KM2. In order to clearly visualize the impact, we can overlay the new output on the existing one. This button, overlay, this does exactly that. Then change KM2 from 4, say, let's cut it by half, and then run it. The new output is overlaid on the old output. Then you can see the impact. This approach allows inspection of several parameters simultaneously. So you can change KM2, KM1, and change other parameters as well at the same time. Another way is more efficient is to define a parameter slider. We go to parameters, hit define slider. In this pop-up, we have KM1, KM2 selected already. But let's say we are only going to focus on KM2. So it requires that the minimum and the maximum values be given. Let's say we are going to cover the range from 1 to 10 with increment of 0.1. Okay. And then this slider pops up. KM2 is at the bottom. Then you can drag and drop, or still with this overlay button pressed, you can do drag and drop. Then the new outcome is overlaid on the existing ones. The third way is batch runs. Let me cancel the slider, revert KM, and remove the runs. The batch run function allows you to run the model successively at a series of values for a parameter. It's useful for scanning a wide range of space to efficiently identify the visually optimal value. Let's go to parameters, batch runs. So we still work on KM2. Let's say we are going to run 5 runs in the range of from 1 to 10. arithmetic spacing, and then keep all the rounds separate, then OK. And this shows the batch run outcome. So from these curves, clearly the optimal KM2 value is close to the second value here. I just forgot what the second value was. Let me see if we can get help from here. Okay, so the second value is 3.25. Next, let's look at a curve fit, which is for parameter optimization. Curve fit. We are going to optimize KM2. So we take the parameter from this list, KM2, and then give it boundaries and the two initial guesses. Let's say the boundary is from 1 to 10. Two initial guesses, 2 and 6. Fit variable is EGE. Data set is this one. Then we do OK. Then it runs. So this is the final outcome, and the program identifies the optimal value for KM2 is 3.78. This function doesn't allow customization of the fitting conditions. For example, there is no choice of error model. You can't optimize several parameters against the numerous data sets simultaneously. Besides, this model has 4 scenarios. Healthy at baseline, healthy after treatment, patient at baseline, patient after treatment. Ideally, unknown parameters should be optimized against the data from all these scenarios. This is often the case for QSP modeling. However, Berkeley Madonna doesn't seem to have the capability of handling this requirement. Next, we are moving to plotting. I'm going to highlight a few buttons here. This P parameters, this add a parameter list on top of this plot. With this list, after you export several plots, you know which plot is resulted from what parameters. The only inconvenience here is this is a full list of all the parameters. It doesn't allow you to pick only those critical parameters. Get rid of this. And this button toggles between plot and the table. And this is a lock. It locks the current plot window. So if I press it, then this sheet is protected. If I run the model again, a new plot window will pop up. So close this. This right-sided triangle, this allows you to add a new page. Then on this first page, we plot this data set and this variable, and on the second, we can plot different variable. Let's say we're going to plot these 3 here. And on the third page, we can plot yet other variables. Let's say the drug concentration. Okay. I can remove the false. Then you run the model. Then all the sheets are updated. To export plots, you may highlight the plot window. Highlight it, then do Control C, or you highlight it, go to File, Save Graphics, and save it into a different, save it into a separate file. You can also export the table. So toggle it to table, and then File, Save Table As, save it into a CSV file. Before exiting, I want to show you the program does have a graphic model building function. So you can access it from here, new flowchart. This brings up the building blocks. It's probably rather inconvenient to use these blocks for QSP modeling. So I'm going to close it. To exit the program, save it first, and then close it. It prompts all runs will be discarded. It means the outputs will be lost once you exit. Next time when you open it, you need to rerun the model to see the outputs. Okay, then it's gone. So up to this point, we've gone through the key functions and the features of Berkeley Madonna. You may already have some ideas about whether or not or how to use it for your QSP modeling. I'm providing an appraisal here for its usefulness for QSP modeling based on my own experience. I'm going to highlight a few points here. So what's great? The program is affordable, easy to learn, easy to use. It's rather flexible. It has interactive plotting. It is good for small-scale QSP models that don't require much statistical power. What's not so great is the program doesn't support scripting. It has limited statistical capability. It's not suitable. It's not suitable for large-scale QSP models, and it has very little SBML support. If you decide to have Berkeley Madonna in your animation, how to get started? One thing is for sure, you don't need a formal workshop training to learn it. You may learn it by yourself. First, you may check out the website and the user's guide. The program itself comes with rich materials, like examples, how do I, and the equation help under the help button. You may also Google for example codes. There's a lot out there. Besides, I highly recommend to read these two publications. Both of them argue for the usefulness of Berkeley Madonna for effective communication with key stakeholders in pharma. The second publication provides multiple example codes, and from the references you can check down additional tutorials. So this publication is particularly useful for Berkeley Madonna beginners. And lastly, there is a user group on LinkedIn. You may get help from there. So the tutorial ends here. I hope with this tutorial I've helped you appreciate some features of Berkeley Madonna and its usefulness for QSP modeling. Now it's time for you to decide whether to have it in your toolbox.